a highway. I didn't know they were coming. And they came in, and I was obviously in a very down place. I needed the money for surgery. My father had turned me down. They came in, and they said, Stevie, your mother told us what's going on with you. And we want to let you know that we love you. And they sat down on the couch. Catherine had this thing. She always wore white gloves. She didn't like to touch things. So we sat down, and they said, Stevie, we want to pray with you. So my mother and Catherine and Robert and I, we all prayed. They prayed for me, basically. And they said, Stevie, here's $100. We want you to have that surgery and get yourself healthy. Then Catherine said, Stevie, and here's another $100. And we want you to just get your life straight and just always help other people. We don't want you to ever give us this money back. So here's one thing I want to tell you real quick here. When somebody has loved you like that and done that for you, it's going to change your life, and it changed mine. It took me a long time to get myself completely straight, but I'm on the right direction, I like to think. Well, again, there was years in there where my father and I had a strained relationship, but right now, I think he's probably one of the single most supportive people of what I'm doing. I know he's proud of me, and it's just beautiful. We share a lot, and it's a wonderful relationship. I want to repeat that again. I love you, Dad. Okay, so some other people who have been there for me is my Right Thinking Foundation Board of Directors and Advisors. They are all role models of people that are giving to others. They are all pillars of the community. And last week you met one of them, Dave Richardson. There'll be others that I want to introduce, but I want to thank each one of them right now for being who they are. I've talked many times about Robin Kasarjian. I just want to say something again. I got introduced to Robin Kasarjian, and she is probably one of the single most beautiful human beings I've ever known in my life. And she wrote a book 25 years ago, Forgiveness, A Bold Choice for a Peaceful Heart. She is just, it's the most incredible book, but it's because she's the most incredible person. And she's pretty much adopted me and just encouraged me and kept me moving forward and done many things for me. So I just want to say thanks to Robin. I have a new relationship with Gordy Graham. And I've told his story a little bit before, but he was 17 years old and got sentenced to 1.5 years in prison. Took him 18 years to get out. He was a slow learner also. He met a man right at the end, about 17 years in, called Lou Tice of the Pacific Institute, who was like a psychologist. And he counseled Gordon and told him things in a way that Gordon finally listened. He had never listened to anybody else. And it was so impactful in Gordon's life that he wanted to go back into prisons once he got out and help all the other people. And he's had a program for like 45 years. Gordy's 86 years old now. And I just want to share something that Gordon's given me. I made contact with him. I sought him out. And he likes what I do, and he let me know that every time I go somewhere and speak, he's there with me. But he told me this. He said, Steve, I just want to tell you something. He said, whenever I ask the Holy Spirit to speak through me when I'm in front of people, it's always great. But the few times that I didn't pray before I went, it doesn't always turn out so good. So I'd like to thank all those people for those things that I've just mentioned. Now, I want to give you a quick list here of some of the books and authors that I have been involved in that are some of the influences in my life. Number one is the Bible, of course. And going along with the Bible, God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, absolutely. Oswald Chambers, his book, Utmost to His Highest, My Utmost to His Highest. That book is the absolute best daily devotional that I've ever come across. It just goes right to the truth in a way that few others have been able to communicate. Napoleon Hill, his book, Think and Grow Rich. I'm going to talk about it in a minute. I'm going to talk about another book he wrote, Outwitting the Devil. Napoleon Hill. I was introduced to Napoleon Hill by a person that's had a profound influence on my life, Bill the Plant Man. Bill the Plant Man, I was 22 years old, give or take, but 40-some years ago, and I was working as an accountant for my cousin Joe Leibowitz in an accounting office, and I just got in an apartment, and Bill had an 18-wheeler that he would drive up from Florida filled with tropical plants, yuccas and ferns and hanging plants, whatever. And he would rent space at a gas station, the Thomas Corner Exxon, and he would open up the back, put all the plants out, or not all of them, but enough to attract people, had a lawn chair, and he would sit there and read a book. And then I would go on my lunch hour to try to buy a plant, and I met Bill. And we had some conversations. I was 22 or 3, Bill was 50. Well, long story short, Bill the Plant Man's wife was an accountant down in Florida, and he'd come up here to sell plants and do things like that. But after listening to me, he said, Steve, I want to tell you about a book. I want to give you a copy of a book. And I want to give it to you because everything that you've communicated to me is what's in this book. And I want you to read this book to validate the way you are thinking, to give you some confidence. That's a wonderful thing when somebody supports you by validating something with you. The book was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That book, other than the Bible, is the single most important book in my life. Napoleon Hill, just to tell you his story really quick, and there's a reason why I'm not going to go into much more detail. Napoleon Hill was a writer. He was a newspaper columnist in 150 newspapers, a business writer, had a wonderful, interesting life. And he answered an ad by Andrew Carnegie. And Andrew Carnegie was the wealthiest man in America, Carnegie Steel. And the ad was that he wanted to hire someone that would do a study. And the study was basically, he wanted to find out what it was, this is what the book's about, what it was that successful people all had in common, and he wanted to be distilled down into some principles that could be passed on to people so they could become successful. And Napoleon Hill asked him, well, that's pretty interesting. What's the compensation? And he says, I'm not going to pay you, but what I will do for you is I'm going to give you a letter of introduction so that you will have an audience, have access to some of the most successful people in the world. We're talking about successful people in all disciplines, business, medicine, the science, well, the sciences, the arts, sports, everything. And Napoleon Hill took this on, and he interviewed 500 people over a 20-year period. He had like 3 days with each one of them. He had a letter of introduction. And what he learned and what he wrote in his book has influenced my life more than any other book I've ever read. Basically, he learned a lot, and one of the things that he learned was that almost without exception, every single one of the most successful people in the world, Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, politicians, etc., they had their worst setback immediately preceding their rise to whatever their greatest success was, where they never looked back. And why is this? Was a thing that he labeled definiteness of purpose. When they're at the bottom of the barrel, when they had fallen all the way down, they were at this place where they were stripped of just about everything. And they got to know themselves. They got to know who they really were when they were at that bottom point. And each one of them made up their mind that they will never, ever let life treat them like this again. So then they moved forward, and the rest is history. Well, I just love that concept, definiteness of purpose, being focused like that. And that was Think and Grow Rich. Another book by Napoleon Hill, Outwitting the Devil, was introduced to me by an inmate in Greensville Men's Work Center 3.5 years ago, and I never read it. And it's an amazing book about human life, human nature, and Outwitting the Devil. I'm gonna move on quick here. We'll talk about Outwitting the Devil a whole lot more at another time. But the bottom line there was that Napoleon Hill, the devil boasted in this interview that Napoleon Hill had him in a position where he had to tell the truth. That's a great oxymoron. If you can get past that, you'll just love this book. But the devil said that he controls everybody's mind. He puts fear in their mind, that everybody lives in fear. That's their motivator. And he says, I've been able to control 98% of everyone that ever walked the face of the earth. And Napoleon Hill said to him, well, if you're so good at what you do, then why didn't you get that last 2%? And the devil said, drat you, because they think for themselves. That's what Napoleon Hill is all about. He was the first one to ever develop a philosophy of success, and every great motivational speaker ever since then has been just paraphrasing Napoleon Hill. So another person that I like their books is Will Rogers. He said, I never met a man I didn't like. Hey, I love everybody, and Will Rogers was the epitome of that. Yogi Berra. I like the witticisms, the yogiisms of Yogi Berra. When you get to a fork in the road, take it. Yogi's just wonderful. So you got to lighten up a little bit with Yogi Berra there. So that's a good thing. Well, I think that those are some of the influence in my life. I'll share this with you. I've read comic books my whole life, and I got into the Green Lantern in Darkest Day and Brightest Day and Darkest Night. No evil shall escape my sight. I really love that. That's kind of my background to try to always be good. Another one is Spider-Man's uncle. He said, with great power comes great responsibility. So these are the kind of things that I'm talking to you about. So when you start wanting to be able to surround yourself with the right people, remember this: you have to give back to them. You have to genuinely care about them. And that's the principle of Napoleon Hill's mastermind group, is that you surround yourself with a personal board of directors, and they're all people that genuinely care, that they want to help you be successful. And you cannot put people on your board that you can't offer them something in exchange. But if you can surround yourself, and Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich teaches this, when you can surround yourself in a mastermind group with people that care about you, not for money, it's really going to be wonderful. You get so more out of the relationship when you're not having to pay for it, when they want to do it from their heart. So you need to build up trust. These are the things that I wanted to share with you today. You have to always think, and you have to believe in yourself. And we're down to 1 minute here. And I just want to tell you that there's 3 songs I get together. Jimmy Cliff, You Can Get It If You Really Want, and Elvis Presley, If I Can Dream, are some wonderful songs. Maya Angelou's book, Why the Caged Bird Sings, is phenomenal. And we're going to come back to every one of these things one day and talk about these things. And so, in closing, I just want to tell you that 3 points of mine that if I were to die tomorrow, I'd want to make sure my kids knew that I want them to be successful in life: enthusiasm, politeness, and smile. Be thankful, do for others, surround yourself with people, and don't be too proud to accept help when you need it, and take it. Be thankful. So I've got so much that I have in my notes that I haven't shared, but have a great week. And next week we've got Don Green, the Executive Director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and that is going to be one of the greatest interviews I'll ever be involved in. So I'm bringing you the Executive Director of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, Don Green, next week. Be sure to tune in.
Thanks for listening to Right Thinking with Steve Copeland. I look forward to being with you again next week. And remember, don't quit, plan ahead, it will get better. God bless you.